I got only allowed 3 minutes to bring out a lot of the concerns that the Citizens Tax Committee had. I had wrote a speech in public. We weren't allowed to get on the agenda, and we were only given 3 minutes to present a lot of the concerns that we witnessed coming out of the last meeting. I tried to read it about 3 minutes through. They cut me off, and I was basically sat down and disciplined. And here's basically what I was trying to say. Some of the other things that I witnessed at last month's meetings were the most concerning to me and the membership of the CTC, so much so that they asked me to speak to the board on their behalf. Like most of the public, I thought CAFMA was formed to create a cost and tax savings entity for the public in which Central Yavapai and Chino would share management and resources. This would provide better service to the taxpayer and lower his taxes. Great idea. What I did not realize is that CAFMA does not share but controls all the resources. Two things gave this away. You got to ask, who spends the time and who spends the money? The Chino Valley board meeting was a few minutes. CAFMA's meeting took up the entire time slot, and if it weren't for the concerns brought up by board members Steele and Jacobs, the CYFD meeting would have been very short. While CYFD and Chino Valley approve a budget, it's CAFMA that spends the money. There's no election by the public for representation on CAFMA board. It's made up of select members of the other two boards. And their own rules state that a board member could be removed with or without cause. What's that? Rock the boat and you're gone. In the last Central Yavapai board meeting, a member questioned the rubber stamping of millions of dollars to CAFMA and was immediately told by the attorney that they would be breaking contracts, causing lawsuits, and upsetting fire service, essentially telling him, vote yes or else. This is an elected official they did this to. The same attorney represents all three boards. When asked what would happen if a conflict arose, he said he would represent only Central Yavapai Fire Department. If an attorney is advising one organization he represents that a proposed action breaches the contract with another organization he represents, isn't there already a conflict? How is an attorney representing both supposed to provide advice on that issue? This isn't a hypothetical question, guys, as there really are such issues both generally and to particular expenditures. Let me tell you why this matters. CTC is a watchdog for our tax money. Central Yavapai and Chino Valley Fire Districts, they're supposed to act as our watchdogs for the taxpayers, protecting the interest of their taxpayers. How do they do that if they have no authority or responsibility? If decisions by CAFMA make sense for Chino Valley, but not for Central Yavapai, how are those interests protected, and who represents who? A board member asked if he could record the executive sessions as he has a hearing disability, and while I respect the chair, sometimes she's a little hard to understand. He was discouraged by the attorney from doing so, even though the attorney could find nothing prohibiting a board member from doing that very thing. He would still be under the same open and executive session meeting laws, recorded or not. I had to ask myself, why is he trying to hinder the board's members' ability to understand the content of the meetings? Where's the transparency in that? When the board member tried to make a motion, something like 4 times, his head was spun so hard with legalese he never did get the motion out. Staff even grew visibly upset with this board member. From the average guy in the audience, it looked simply like members Steele and Jacobs were getting bullied by staff members and the attorney who should have been helping to clarify the motion. I heard more than once in that meeting that the creation of CAFMA was legal. How is effectively neutering the two elected boards into bodies without much say, how is that may be legal? Well, the attorney's doing his job. He's going to tell you what's legal, but it's your job, the board member's job, to determine what's right. Remember, slavery was legal, child labor was legal, stealing the natives' land was legal. Thank God people of character stepped up and said it may be legal, but it sure as hell ain't right. I heard that one reason Central and Chino could not truly be merged was because Chino is topped out in its assessment and that the rate for Central would have to be raised, and that would never get approved by the voters. Well, here's an idea. Lower Chino's assessment to Central's rate. Heck, take it to the voters and ask if it would be okay to lower their taxes. I think you might be welcomed with that. Central is doing well at their rate. Chino should be able to do the same. Then you could dissolve Central Yavapai and Chino Valley and let the taxpayer elect the board of CAFMA, and we would get representation for how our dollars are spent. Maybe representation split into districts so large areas like Williamson Valley, which were almost wiped out by wildfire, could have a voice on the board, something they don't have now. Representation reflected by the entire population instead of just Chino and PV. We were told combining resources would have huge cost savings. Are these savings for CAFMA to use towards growth, or are they passed on to the taxpayer? I looked up taxes in different neighborhoods served by CAFMA, and homeowners have been charged a steadily increasing amount of money. Many of the board members, like myself, spent our careers in the private sector. If we weren't growing, we were dying. Build the company, and bigger is better. It's not supposed to be the same in government. And never forget that they represent the public's best interest. We put them there. You are not part of or employed by the fire district. Your job is to ensure the public's money is spent responsibly to provide quality fire and medical services to the areas you cover. When you give out raises and step increases CAFMA-wide, but Chino is maxed out on what they can assess the taxpayer, where does that money come from? Does it come from Central's population? Are the people of Prescott Valley now subsidizing the Chino Fire District? The new administration building, which is utilized by CAFMA, was paid for exclusively out of funds generated by CYFD. It seems to me that CYFD is basically subsidizing Chino, which gets the benefit of this new building while paying nothing. Maybe that's legal, but it's not. That's the sort of thing that attorney or staff of all three organizations can be expected to give advice. I have traveled the world and feel that our 911 and emergency services are second to none. If you need help, you're going to get it, and you're going to get it quick. At the last CTC meeting, I asked who felt they were getting quality services from the rank and file firemen, and every hand went up. We feel we have a very professional and well-trained group of men and women in both districts, and it was very important by the membership that I pass that along. I've spoken with a few of them, and they expressed that, and I expressed that there's nothing that can't be fixed. In fact, CTC would love to be part of fixing it. We aren't against taxation, we just demand that our money be spent wisely and prudently, and that we get representation for that taxation. We want integrity from those we employ and that we elect. These were the electeds. They can make the changes. They can use the discernment to analyze if there's a difference between legal and right. We ask that you review CAFMA, how it was set up, staffed, and how best to make sure that those who are taxed get representation for that taxation. And that's all I wanted to say. Nothing really too rough, but apparently there's not enough time to hear those kind of things.
Can you please explain why we are doing it outside in 30-degree weather?
Well, I was told that we weren't allowed to stand inside the building and do this, so we had to move outside where it's a little bit chilly. And you know, one thing I got to add is the last part that I said is we totally respect the rank and file firemen. This is an administrative issue that we have a problem with. We tried to come to the meeting and explain it, but we weren't allowed the time to speak about it. And I was sent here by the Citizens Tax Committee to express these concerns to the board, but the board didn't care enough to hear about it or let us talk about it after the meeting inside a warm building. So we're standing out here on the coldest day of the year.